Okay, so this is almost a month late, but that's okay. So last year I did a live stream on this channel, just going over all the books I read. And I think last year I did 50 books not last year, but the year before that. So 2016, I did 50 books in total for my Goodreads reading challenge. And this past year, so 2017, I raised it to 60. So I did manage to read 60 books in 2017. And I actually read a lot of really good books in 2017, and it was a really good reading year for me. Yeah, so for this year in 2018, I've also set my reading challenge to 60 books. It seemed to be a pretty good goal for me. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing the same sort of format. I don't know if it was good for you guys last year, but look at that. You can see my ring light. So I bought the cheapest ring light ever. It's like a makeup mirror from Costco that's on a little stand, and it has a light around it. So I don't remember how much it cost, but it was between like $20 and $30. So how can I show this to you without reflecting the light? Is that okay? Is that okay? So yeah, I actually have lighting for this stream for like the first time in my life. And you can probably see that my eyelashes are like a whole millimeter above my actual eyelid or eyelash, real eyelashes. So yep, looking good. So the first book you may have seen that I completed in 2017, I'm probably gonna say the wrong year like every time, but so last year, I completed was The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. And you guys may have heard of that recently because the movie came out last year for it. So yeah, I rated that 5 stars. It's an amazing book. It's nonfiction, and it's all about Jeanette Walls and her completely insane childhood and her extremely strange, possibly mentally deranged parents. So yeah, really interesting book. Nothing like I've ever read before, and it's a true story. Oh, you know what? I should have got out the books ahead of time that I actually own so I could just like hold it up and show you, but I just thought of that now. So clearly I didn't plan very well. The next book I read was Stranger Baby by Emily Berry. And let's see if I can show you the cover without. It's a nice blue like graphic cover. But yeah, so that is a poetry collection. And I actually bought that online off Amazon, I think, and I got the recommendation for that from Jen Campbell. She is a fairly prominent book-related, writing-related YouTuber, and yeah, I really trust her like taste in books. Hi, Tammy and Becky in the comments in the chat. Thank you for coming out, my friends. Yeah, so Stranger Baby is a poetry collection. Emily Berry writes like freeform poetry, and this particular collection is mostly about grief. And I rated 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty well done. I just took some points off because there were a couple poems that seemed a little like high school-y, like a little overdramatic, a little emo. If I dare to use that term for someone else, you know, calling the kettle black, I guess. Okay, so the next book, which I was really, really looking forward to, I pre-ordered, was Hag Seed by Margaret Atwood. I cannot show you. Is it working? Okay. And you might know that Margaret Atwood is one of my favorite authors. And I ended up rating this one only 3 stars out of 5 on Goodreads, but I wrote in my review it's like 3.7-ish stars. And I said in my review that the book was a little bit too short, and so I got confused by the main character, and he needed a bit more development. And yeah, I can't really say much more without giving a lot of spoilers, so Yeah, it was a really funny book. So there was a couple parts where I did laugh out loud, and Mara it can be really funny and clever. I need water already. Oh my god. By the way, you guys, remember I told you, two of you in the chat, that I was doing my nails for like 5 hours like 2 nights ago? Yeah, as you can see, they're gone. I don't know what's going on, if I'm just like an idiot at doing my nails, but they're gone. Hello, Andrew Johnson. Welcome. So yeah, the next book I rated was Restful Insomnia, How to Get the Benefits of Sleep When You Can't, by Sandra Kornblatt. And I hated this book. I give it 1 out of 5 stars. It's basically a book about how you should kind of like meditate when you can't sleep, and then you'll still feel rested, which you won't. But yeah, I really didn't like that one. Okay, so another one, I actually really did enjoy this book, but I only rated it 2 out of 5 stars. It's Cleopatra's Daughter by Michelle Moran. It's backwards. Okay, sorry. So Michelle Moran or whatever, she's written a number of historical books, and this is my first time sort of getting into her books this past year. And I think I took a star off my rating there because I thought the ending was so bad of that book. But Cleopatra's Daughter basically is basically exactly how it sounds. It is from the point of view of the daughter of Cleopatra, starting when she's really young, like 10 or something like that. And when her parents are killed, her mother is killed in Egypt, and then she's taken as like a prisoner / ward of the state to Rome, and basically has to learn how to adapt to Roman culture. And yeah, it's pretty interesting if you're into that time period. Like I think Julius Caesar was in it, and his son, and yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, I just remember the ending being horrible. Okay, so the next book was pretty big last year. I think it was popular. It's called The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And everyone I've heard of who has read this book loved it. And I don't know why, because I stopped reading it at about 60% of the way through. And I just found it really boring. And it could have been because I was listening to the audiobook, and sometimes the narrator really just ruins the book because they are too boring. Or they're just not good at reading it. So yeah, maybe I should give it another shot because, like I said, everyone else is loving it. Tokyo Joe Vlogs and Panda in the Night, hello and welcome. Okay, so next up was Paper Girls Volume 1, and that's a graphic novel written by Brian K. Vaughan, one of my favorite comic writers, actually, I've discovered this year. Not that I discovered him this past year, but like I realized I enjoy his comic writing a lot. So yeah, I picked up Paper Girls Volume 1. It's a continuing series right now, but I only rated that one 3 out of 5 stars, so I decided not to continue on with the series as for right now. Just because I thought the story within Volume 1 was fine as it was, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to continue the story. Yeah, so Paper Girls is about basically this like gang of preteen girls, I think, and some like mystery. Yeah. So then I read Victoria Aveyard's series Red Queen. It's a young adult series. Pretty much what you would expect from that. So I read Red Queen, the first book, and then immediately read Glass Sword, number 2. after that, and I rated them both 2 out of 5 stars, and they're pretty typical of what you could expect from young adult fantasy books. And honestly, even though I gave them 2 stars, they're probably some of the better young adult books that I've read that were like shitty. That doesn't make any sense, but yeah. And then I read a book that I've wanted to reread for a long time. It's one of my favorites as a kid. And it's called Danny, the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl. And Roald Dahl was probably my favorite writer as a kid. And I remember loving the book Danny, the Champion of the World. And I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars for this reread. So Danny is a little boy who lives with his dad, and they live in kind of like a caravan. And you kind of get the impression that they're pretty poor and they live in like a poor area that's very divided between like the poor and the rich people. And Danny and his dad devise this plan to steal pheasants, I think it is, some kind of bird. I can't really remember. And basically profit off of it and get back at a guy who I think was a jerk to his dad or someone else. I don't remember. Okay. So the next book I read is The Three Body Problem by, and I'm going to attempt this name, Xie Jian Liu. That was horrible. Xie Jian Liu. Yeah, so The Three Body Problem is the first in a series of translated science fiction from China. And I don't really remember how I heard about this series, but I picked up the first one because I was so interested in the title in itself. The Three Body Problem just seemed very unusual. And I've never read translated Chinese fiction, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I thought it sounded really interesting. So from the beginning, I thought three body referred to like 3 planets or something like that. And it kind of ended up being sort of like that. It's actually, well, I don't really want to tell you what it's about because I went into it not knowing what was going on. And I just felt so mind effed through the whole book, maybe the whole series. And it was so good. It's a really hard sci-fi. So if you've never read science fiction or like heavy science fiction before, then you may not like it, or it might just be too much. The whole series they're quite heavy books, and all of the characters retain their Chinese names. So I found that hard to keep track of for some of the characters because I'm just not used to hearing Chinese names. So for me, like, I don't know, it's just hard to remember them sometimes since they're like long, heavy books. If it cut from one character to another after like a few chapters, then I'd be like, who is this again? And yeah, so despite that, I really enjoyed it and the ending was insane. Like, I actually had dreams about this book, and usually if I have dreams like picturing what's happening in the book, that means that it's good and it's like really affecting me. So yeah, I really recommend that. And I read that whole series this past year, so I will get to those sequel books soon. In this video, I should say. So yeah, I rated that 4 out of 5 stars. I think I took a star off because it does kind of drag in the middle. Yeah, so I think the whole series is called Remembrance of Earth. Hold on, I'll just click on it. Remembrance of Earth's Past. I don't know why it's called that, but a lot of people just call it Three Body Problem over here. Okay, so the next book I read was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. And I hate when I'm looking at this and I can see the reviews I left. I don't leave reviews for all the books. God, I can't talk. I can't read the whole review without clicking on more, but like I can already see that there's like typos in it. So yeah, that's driving me nuts. So anyway, this is another like, I think it's classified as young adult, but it's more like new adult, I guess. Like the characters in it are in their like early 20s, like 19, I don't know. But it's pretty original. Like there was Tammy says in the chat, I guess it's three body, referring to Earth being the third planet from the sun. That's a good guess, but no, that's not what it's referring to. In the book, you're introduced to the three body problem as a video game. So in this world, we're assuming like it's current times are just like a little bit in the future. There's a virtual reality game called Three Body Problem. And then as we get deeper and deeper into the story, you start to put things together and it's revealed like what that three body problem game is all about and where it came from. It's really messed up. It's very messed up. So yeah, Six of Crows. Yeah, so Six of Crows is about this. It's like a heist story, but it takes place in like a kind of original fantasy world, but they have guns. Yeah, like usually there's no guns in fantasy stories, like swords and shit. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love the characters in it. I really like the writing in it. Some of the jokes in it are like a little cornball for me, but it wasn't bad. It's really good actually. Yeah, so next I read The 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg. Can I show you the cover? So that's a graphic novel, and again, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. There's several here in a row that are 4 out of 5. And the story of this graphic novel is a historical lesbian romance, but within that story there's several like fables and kind of like folk tales that one of the characters is telling. And yeah, it was really good. Very good. I don't really want to talk about the plot that much because it's not extremely complicated, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's very good. Next book was another graphic novel, is Garbage Night by Jen Lee. And I really like Jen Lee. She is a great illustrator. And again, it's 4 out of 5 stars. And it's just about these like anthro-looking animals. And they basically are trying to figure out if they should like leave to this town to go to the city to get food. And it's kind of like, it seems kind of post-apocalyptic, and it's kind of like a teen rebellion story. But yeah, it's really good. I don't know if you can see the cover. So next up, I read Crooked Kingdom, and that's the sequel to Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. And I actually rated that 5 out of 5 stars, so I rated it higher than the first book, and I think that's the first time I've ever rated a sequel higher than the first one. So yeah, it's about the same characters, and it's kind of like continuing from the first book, but yes, really enjoyed it again. The Handmaid's Tale, I'm sure you guys have heard of that, by Margaret Atwood, and I read it again, so I don't know how many times I've read this book now. And I got the new version off the new like Canadian Audible site. They had like a free version read by Claire Danes when they first launched the Canadian site. And yeah, it's one of my favorite books ever. Claire Danes, her reading is not like the best, especially at the beginning of the book, but then it starts to get better. She like relaxes a bit over the course of the book or something. But yeah, I read it again, and then the show came out. So yeah, I was being very annoying and being like, "Oh, this didn't happen in the book, and this happened in the book," and like, so yeah, I'm looking forward to the next season. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with it. Since the season, like season one, ended kind of like where the book ends, so yeah. Um, the the show I actually found really scary. I found it more disturbing than the book. There's like a couple episodes where I felt like traumatized from it. I okay. Oh my god. So then I read the third part of Victoria Aveyard's series Red Queen. The series is called Red Queen. The last book is called King's Cage, and I rated it 1 out of 5 stars. And I think I remember the ending of this book. And yeah, so I'll just read you my review. You call that an ending? LMAO, bitch. Almost couldn't finish this. The first half was so boring, nothing happened. And Mare, yes, the main character's name Mare, like Mare, the horse kind of thing. I know that's just like another YA trope where they make up these like nonsensical names for the characters. Mare was just whining about herself the entire time. I loved how every boring self-pity thought was detailed for half the book until 3 boring months pass. Like I think the character actually says that in within the books. Like, okay. I was like, okay, thank you. Couldn't we have had that from the beginning? Why authors need to stop making everyone nervous virgins? They kill thousands of people, but then they're all like, OMG, a shirtless boy or girl. It's true. That was one of the like annoying things about this book is that this character, she is like responsible for like a mass death. I forget how, and she never really like processes it. She's just like, oh man, I feel bad. Well, I'm not gonna think about that anymore. It's like, what? Yeah. Um, so 1 out of 5 stars. The next book is Idaho by Emily Ruskovich. Uh, uh, uh. I keep burping again, sorry. It must be like a nervous reaction when I'm doing live shows. Like I always just start burping. So I rated that 3 out of 5 stars. So this is a contemporary adult like literary fiction, and it's about this lady who marries this guy whose previous family has been killed, and as the novel progresses, we kind of find out like what happened to them. But it's also kind of vague. Like we never really conclude like who killed them, which I guess I just spoiled the book. But I'm sorry. Yeah, so I guess I didn't rate it higher for that reason because I just really wanted to know like what had actually happened and it's never explained. The next book I just finished. I read most of it literally years ago. It says in 2013 here on my Goodreads, and I just finished it in 2017. So it's Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I wrote awful. It took me 4 years to finish a 200-page novel. I give up on you, Miss Austen. Bye. It's true. There's just some classic novels I cannot get on with, and Jane Austen, like all of her stuff that I've read, I don't get why people love it and love her. Like, not that I hate her, but I just like I don't click with it at all. Okay, next I read Eileen by Otessa Moshfegh. I don't know how you say that. And this is a really good book, like definitely my type of thing. I rated it 4 out of 5. And it's about this, it's told from the point of view of this really mentally weird lady. And yeah, I don't wanna really spoil it, but it's very interesting. Okay, so next was, I believe it was a bestseller. It's called All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And I had bought this book previously, but Charlie recommended it, and so I picked it up. Like I finally read it, and I gave it 4 to 5 stars. This is a World War II book, and I think it takes place in Germany, if I remember correctly. And it's about mostly this little girl who gets displaced because of the war. And there's also some parts with this little boy in it, but yeah, the writing is so beautiful. Like there's so many parts in the book I need to go back and highlight them because just like the words that he chose are so beautiful. And I got my mom to read it and my stepdad, so they both really liked it. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think I ended up not giving it 5 stars because I just found it kind of hard to connect to the characters, and not that they're badly done, but yeah, and just like World War books are like not really my, or movies, they're not really my thing. Like I just find them too like real. I know that sounds stupid because they like the wars were real, so I guess that's why I don't really like reading them, because I like reading to escape and not to have to think about like, oh, this was real and this probably happened to a real person, and that really sucks. Yeah. Next book is Miss Don't Touch Me, Volume 1 by Hubert. And it's a graphic novel. Another one of my favorite graphic novel writers. Man, you can't see anything without the reflection. So yeah, Miss Don't Touch Me is about this young lady who joins a brothel and starts working there in order to try and find out who has been killing off young women in Paris, I think, somewhere in France. And but she's like a virgin and she doesn't actually want to like work as a sex worker. And yeah, it's pretty funny. I really, really love his work. All his graphic novels that I've read so far, I absolutely love. The drawings in it are just perfect, and they're not like the most amazing, like detailed drawings ever, but just like the way that they draw the expressions and poses is so perfect, and I don't know, just everything about it is great. So then I read Quitters Inc. by Stephen King, and I only rated it 2 out of 5 stars, and I remember literally nothing about it. I think it's a short story. Oh my god, so this one I didn't even read like half of it. I probably shouldn't have even added it to my list, but I actually bought it using my Audible account. I think I've talked about that before. I've had Audible for like over 3 years now. And it's The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. And it was just so boring. It's about like these old British people in like a village or something, or like Essex. Is Essex a village? It's probably a city. I have no idea. That's probably why I didn't like it, because I know nothing about Essex. So the people I heard really liked it are from England. So that would make a lot more sense. Okay, so the next one is a book called Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So this was one of her earlier novels, and this is the first Grisha novel. So her other series that I already talked about, the duology, those take place in the Grisha universe as well. So Grisha in her universe are these people who have like these special powers, and there's all different types of Grisha. Or Grisha, like in the audiobooks, they say Grisha. I'm not sure. So there's like people who can change their appearance. There's people who can like affect your like heart rate and like other things. I forgot all of them already. So yeah, this is like these books for the Grisha trilogy, they take place earlier than the other two I already talked about, so I kind of read them in reverse, but it doesn't really matter. You can still do that. Like none of these characters are in the other two books, except like the main character is like mentioned as a saint in like the next series, like the one I already talked about. So the Six of Crows series. So yeah, I wrote a review for this one, and I said, this book has a lot of young adult tropes that some people may find unappealing, aka love triangle, super special girl who isn't pretty and is plain, but she has a unique power that suddenly comes out at the most opportune time, and all the boys are just in love with her. But the difference here is it's actually written nicely. I had one minor gripe about Mal, that's like one of the male love interests in it. He's really funny and playful in the first chapter, but he was more stoic and hardened when he reappears. And then doesn't really have much characterization other than drooling over Alina, who's the main character. Yeah, I really hate that in young adult books, and I think it appears like sometimes in adult books as well, as when like the main character is a girl and then like the guy who likes her or whatever, just like he has no personality, or like he doesn't do anything except like talk about how like amazing the girl is, and it's just like boring and annoying. So it's 4 out of 5 stars. I don't remember if I said that already. The next book I read was a sequel to that, which was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. And I rated that 3 out of 5 stars, and I said it's not nearly as strong as the first book. The middle dragged badly. You know what's weird is I've heard some other people who are big fans of this series, this book is their favorite of the trilogy, and I'm so confused by that because I thought it was really boring. And then I just said the ending didn't go as I had expected, but I'll be picking up the next one, which I did. But I did read a couple other books in between. So the next one, oops, I didn't mean to click on that, was Anya's Ghost by Vera Brozgul. So many names I can't pronounce. And it's a graphic novel, 4 out of 5 stars. It's pretty cute. Not one of my new favorites, but it's about this kind of antisocial girl who accidentally gets herself attached to a ghost of another girl who died in her town or like her area. Then I read Deadly Class Volume 1. Oh my god, it's been so long since I read that. I haven't read Volume 2 yet, but I need to. Written by Rick Remender. But I didn't expect to really even like the series and ended up loving it. Again, probably one of my new favorite comic writers, but I don't know for sure yet because I've only read this one book. But Deadly Class is about an assassin school, and I know you've heard that concept before. It's like a really anime-ish concept, but this is an American comic. And yeah, so I wrote a review. I'll just read that. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars, but I wrote more like 4.5 stars because I really had to suspend my belief about the whole concept of the school. But really tight writing and nice art. Other criticisms, the main character is drawn to look over 30, but is supposed to be in high school. Too many stereotypes used for secondary and tertiary characters. So yeah, the secondary characters are all stereotypes as of the first volume, but I'm hoping there will be some more development in the following volumes. Then I read Giant Days I read Giant Days Volume 1 by John Allison. And this is one of those graphic novels where the cover is much better than the interior. And I rated it 2 out of 5 stars. And I wrote, plain everyday life with comic relief is just not my thing. I enjoyed about half of this book and the other half was pure cringe. Yeah, so a lot of comedy I really don't like. I've already talked about that, how I just have like a stick up my ass about comedy and I just like have a really hard time laughing at like scripted jokes. I know I'm an asshole. But yeah, it was okay. I'm not going to be continuing it, needless to say, because it was kind of a pain to get through that first one. Then I continued with the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, the last book, Ruin and Rising. And I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty dramatic ending to that series. A lot of young adult and even adult series, like I get kind of let down by the last book. It seems really anticlimactic. And like the author didn't know what to do with the series, but this one, you could definitely tell she knew like where she was going the whole time. And I couldn't really believe she went as far as she did with the ending, and I like got traumatized. And the review I wrote rolls on the floor crying, and that's it. Yeah. So definitely recommend that series if you're into young adult at all. Young adult fantasy, and not like just contemporary, but yeah. One of the better young adult series I've ever read. After I read all her books, I like ordered them all off Amazon immediately because that's how much I like them. I have them all on Audible and the real like physical paper books. So you're welcome, Leigh Bardugo. So then I read The Wicked and the Divine Volume 2, written by Kieran Gillen. And I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. It's a graphic novel series. And it's about these gods from all different like mythologies and how they get reincarnated every so often. I forget what it is, like arbitrary number, like 90 years or something like that. And they get to live as humans for like 2 years. And yeah, it's about them. So don't really remember what happened in that second volume. I've been reading them kind of like spaced far apart, which is not a good idea because I tend to forget the details, but it is about like this human who gets kind of wrapped up in the drama between the gods on Earth. Okay, so then I didn't even read this whole book. Again, that's another one that I kind of cheated by adding it because I don't think I got even halfway through it. And usually I try to add books only if I got at least halfway through. But, you know, it's kind of good that I added them here as well if I didn't, because it'll like remind me if I go to look them up on Goodreads. Like I already tried to read this and I hated it, so don't try to read it again. So anyway, the book is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. It's the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. Very famous young adult series. There's a shirtless man on the cover. Do you even understand how embarrassing it is to be like a 30-year-old woman holding that book and trying to read it? Yeah, so I've tried to read this 4 times. 4 times, that's insane for me. Like usually I'll give it 2 tries over the past 4 years and keep giving up at the same parts. So I think I deserve to add this to my shelves just for sheer effort, but do not finish. I give up. I'm going to skip ahead to her more recent series. Oh, I don't remember saying that. I don't know. I honestly am not planning to read her more. Bye, Tammy. Thank you for coming out. You don't have to watch the rest if you don't want to. She has like another series after the Mortal Instruments, but I keep confusing them because they're named really similarly. It's like Infernal Devices or something like that. Like, can't you come up with something different? I don't know, like the Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices, doesn't that seem like the same meaning, just like changing the word? I don't know. Next book was My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Nagata Kabi. And this is a manga that really blew up last year. It was pretty big at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, I think. Maybe later than that. I didn't read it till August, it says here. But I only rated it 3 out of 5 stars. And I wrote a review. I said, it's too fast-paced for me. I couldn't get invested. Basically an entire book of telling instead of showing, even though it's a graphic novel. It's true. Like it's about this young lady who basically doesn't figure out that she is gay until she's like in her late 20s, I think. And it's just her telling her story of like how deep in the closet she was as like a teenager in her early 20s, and then like how she eventually starts like hiring escorts, prostitutes. Yeah. It's not bad. All right. I really oscillated between like young adult and adult books this last year. It was like I read an adult book and then I was like, oh, I gotta read a young adult book to kind of like balance it out. But I really loved this one. So I finally read The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, another name I cannot pronounce. Yeah, probably y'all have heard of it. It's a really like popular young adult series. And I was putting it off for so long because I didn't read all of it. I started to read Maggie Stiefvater, Steve Water. It has a V in it. But whatever. So I started to read her very first book. It's called like Shiver or something like that. And it's really dumb. I started to read that years ago and I couldn't get through it. It's like, it reads like a 13-year-old wrote it. No offense. It's really bad. So I was like, I'm never going to read that, even though I heard people raving about it all the time. It's like their favorite series ever and blah, blah, blah. And then finally, Ellen texted me and she was like, you need to read this. And she was telling me all about it. And I was like, what the hell? I tried to read her first book. Pants in the Night You Have to Go. Edit. Okay. Thank you for coming. See you later. This is probably going to be a very long stream, so I don't blame you guys. I think my last one was like almost 2 hours, so yeah. Ellen was texting me, and I was like, girl, I tried to read her first book, and it was garbage. She was like, me too, but this one is like legit. She like became a good writer and stuff. So I checked it out from the library, and even though I only rated it like 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, it was really good. And looking back, I'd probably rate it higher. I think I just took points off because it is such an introductory novel and it's just setting up the entire story. And nothing really like substantial happens and nothing gets resolved because it's just like a setup novel to the whole series. Also, very good audiobook. Really recommend the audiobook. Phew. Drink break. Okay, next I read the sequel to Three Body Problem, which is called The Dark Forest, which I was like, what the hell, dude? Like, you had such an original novel, The Three Body Problem, and then The Dark Forest, like, sounds like a Harry Potter title. By Xie Yo. I've heard everyone else who, like, English speakers reviewing these books, they call them Cixin Liu. But I listened to the audiobooks again, super good audiobooks. And the guy reading it says his name like Cizian Liu, something like that. So the last name is pronounced like Lo, not Liu. Anyway, The Dark Forest, again, super hard sci-fi, but this one is like a little more actiony, a little more fast-paced than the first book. So if you do read the first book and you find it a little slow or a little too heavy, try to keep with it because the second book gets a little faster paced, and then the third book is much faster paced and much more actiony with a little bit less like heavy sci-fi and like sciencey terms in it. I rated this again like 3 out of 5 stars, but I love this series. Like, there's just certain things I think that maybe take off points. Like the friends who I got to read this series as well, he was saying the same thing where some of the characters are just so ridiculous that they read like cartoon characters at certain points, and I think a lot of them who are like that are like the politicians in the story, and they don't play a major part, but I kind of took that as the author's like commentary on those politicians or like the society that they represent. So yeah, that could be why. Then I read Say Goodnight to Insomnia by Greg D. Jacobs, and I had to read that for an insomnia like therapy course that I took. So yeah, that was boring. I read The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl issue #1. I didn't rate that. It's just like not my thing. So yeah, a bunch of these I didn't rate because they're like single issue. So it's like 15 pages of comics. So it's kind of like, there's not really enough there to even rate. So then I read Betty and Veronica #1 by Adam Hughes, one of my favorite artists ever. It was beautiful. Did I continue the comic series? No. So those two things, I think I got them on free comic book day. So that's why I read them. Oh my God. We are getting near the top. That means we could be almost done. Following that, I jumped right to the last book in the Three Body Problem series, aka Remembrance of Earth's Past, #3, by Xie Liu. And it was amazing. It is amazing. Like, to me, getting through the heaviness of the first two books was totally worth it to get to this end, because like every chapter I was just like, what the heck is going to happen? I just couldn't wait to find out what happened, and it was insane. And again, I like got traumatized by it, and I was shook, and I had nightmares about it. But I only rated it 4 out of 5 stars. And I don't know why, like legit, I would say this is one of my new favorite series ever. But I didn't give any of the books 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know why. From what I've heard, some people have had a hard time connecting with the characters in this book and the story in this book, maybe just because it's so out there and just it's kind of foreign. Not just because it's based in China, but because maybe it's just such heavy sci-fi. Again, another review I left a typo in. So I wrote, enjoyed this one the most of the trilogy, but I took the star off because I still feel unsatisfied with the ending. Yeah, the end of the book is insane. It's like upsetting. Okay, so the next book is Saga, Volume 7, written by Brian K. Vaughan. And I've talked about the series before. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Really amazing art, really good writing. One of the most popular graphic novel series that's running right now. Yeah, I can't really speak to the content of that volume because we are in like the middle of the series. But it's, if you didn't know, it's about these two characters who are, each of them are from these warring planets, and they fall in love and they have a baby, and it's about them basically like trying to survive the war and like the people who are chasing after them and trying to kill them. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's really good. Followed by The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 3. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Again, graphic novel series. It's about those gods I was talking about earlier. I think that one is the one where they like took a break from the actual story, or it's the volume after. I forget. But like they just got a bunch of guest artists in and had like these random short comics compiled into one volume, and I didn't like that, and I don't think anyone liked that. But I rated this one 3 stars, so maybe this isn't the volume I'm thinking of. Next, Lee, I read The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. So I really liked this novel as well. The series kind of took a turn that I wasn't expecting. I don't think I even told you guys what the series is about when I was talking about the first one, did I? So The Raven Boys is about, despite the title, the main character is a girl named Blue. And she has a family of like psychics, and they run like a psychic business from their house. And they're like this eclectic group of ladies. Hi, Becky. Thank you for sticking around. I know this is terribly exciting for you. But yeah, so Blue, she isn't exactly a psychic, but she has this kind of power. She amplifies the other psychics' powers. And every year her aunt takes her to this graveyard and they do this like ritual thing. And the aunt sees everyone who is going to die that year in their area, like in their town. But on this particular night, Blue sees this guy who she doesn't know. Oh, and like all of her life, her family's told her that she has this curse on her, that her true love is like cursed to die when she kisses them. And yeah, so she sees this young man who's like a ghost or like a apparition because they're not dead yet or something, I don't know, in the graveyard. And basically he's part of the Raven Boys, and she kind of like accidentally gets into like a friendship with this group of guys, and one of them is this guy whose apparition she saw in the graveyard that night. And all of the characters in it are super well developed. At first I was like, there's way too many characters in this. Like there's the main character, like her mom's friends, and then there's like the group of boys, and like I was like, I can't like keep track of all them, but after a while you can, and like they're all distinctly different and they're all really interesting. And I just loved all of them. And yeah, so I rated that 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Woman Upstairs by Claire Messud. All these people have random names I can't pronounce. This is a really weird novel. I picked this up from my library just because I saw that the like audiobook was immediately available to take out. But I don't think it's super old. I think it's like a fairly recent release. And it is like a contemporary fiction. It's about this lady who she's a teacher, and she is like, is she a teacher? Yeah, but she's also an artist, but she like never really did anything with her art. She makes like these, I don't want to say diorama because it just sounds like something you make when you're like 10, but she makes like these little rooms. And she's making like little like rooms of like artists and writers, and like their like historically accurate room or something like that. And then it's just really weird. So she gets this new student in her class and meets the mom of that kid, and she just gets obsessed with them. And she finds out the mom is this artist as well, but she's like kind of famous, like about to become like an extremely famous artist from Europe. And she's like come to the US or wherever they are to work on something, or like her husband is there for some reason, like they're there temporarily. But so this girl, the main character, gets super obsessed with them and is like obsessed with the kid, like always about how like beautiful and perfect he is. She's always talking about that. And then she's like very in love with both the husband and the wife in like a weird way, like in different ways for each of them. And just the entire book is about her like just being more and more obsessed by them, and then like getting hurt by them because they clearly just like live their life and are not obsessed with her. And the ending was really weird. It was kind of like, look at this twist ending. I was like, that's stupid. Like, what the hell? And yeah, the ending was really bad. So I think that's why I gave it 2 out of 5. I think if it had a better ending, I would have given it 3. But if you like freaky, weird books about like weird, unlikable characters, then you'd probably like it. If you really liked those really popular novels, like what's it called, The Girl on the Train and Gone Girl, then you'll really like this book as well, The Woman Upstairs. The next book I read was a graphic novel again. It's called Gawain. Again, I don't know if I'm saying that name right. And The Green Knight by Emily Cheeseman. And it was a Kickstarter. I backed the Kickstarter to get the book, and it's this really beautiful hardcover graphic novel. To be honest, I was a little bit disappointed, and it wasn't like my new favorite book ever. The artwork is a little stiff, and yeah, just the writing wasn't very engaging. It's written like a fairy tale or like folk tale, but without like an updated sort of style of prose. It's just very stiff and cold. I'm gonna have some Coke because I'm cool. Yeah, this is caffeine-free Diet Coke, like the uncoolest Coke ever. Next book I finished was Blue Lily Blue by Maggie, unpronounceable last name. And it is the 3rd book in the Raven Cycle series. And I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. I'm like getting too tired to talk about this now, can you tell? So I wrote, enjoyed it, just not as much as the first 2. The antagonists are making these books feel a bit too episodic, and I hope it's all wrapped up together by the end of the series. Yeah, so this book, the series started to take a nosedive. The bad guys in it are like very cartoonish, and they just kind of like seem to appear out of nowhere, and they're just kind of like, we're evil, and it's like, it kind of really took away from the story. Then I read Wicked and the Divine Volume 4, and I rated 2 out of 5 stars. So I think that's the one that I was thinking of where they like took a break from the actual story. Then I read Miss Don't Touch Me Volume 2. So that's the last part of Miss Don't Touch Me by Hubert. And I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. The story took this like incredible turn away from what they had set up from the first book. Like the main character, she goes and gets a boyfriend and like leaves the brothel basically, and it's just is like, oh, look at this plot twist, like dun dun dun, and it's just like, oh, we better get back to the main plot again. And it was like, what? So the review I wrote was, what the fuck was that ending? But I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars. My ratings make no sense sometimes. And then I read The Raven King, Raven Cycle number 4 by Maggie Stiefvater. And that is the final book in the series, I think, The Raven King. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Did I just say that? And yeah, I ended up being really disappointed in that series because it started off so strong, and then it just kind of like meandered away from everything that she'd set up in the first 2 books. So yeah, it just kind of like started, it was like up, 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 and then it was like down, down, down for the last 2 books. So that sucked. Then I read Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood, and I've had this book for so long, and I kept putting it off because I heard it was amazing, and I just was like, I'm just that type of person where I know I really like something or I really want to do something, I'm gonna like wait and hold on to it. Like if I have chocolate that I really like, I won't eat all of it at once. I'll eat like 1 bite of it a day. That's just like the type of person I am. And I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Not a lot of 5 stars, not a lot of 5-star reads in 2017, but I still really liked and loved a lot of what I read. Like I said, my ratings don't make sense. Really love this book. Margaret Atwood is amazing, and I finally read it because the TV show came out this past year, and I haven't read it yet. I mean, I haven't watched it yet, so that's dumb. Oh, we're almost done, guys. There's like a few more books. Okay, so the next book I read in 2017 was Bellevue Square by Michael Redhill. And I read this book because it won the, what's it called? Giller Prize. It's like the biggest literary prize in Canada. So this is a Canadian novel, and it takes place in Toronto. And it's about this lady who lives in Toronto, and she starts seeing her doppelganger just like around town everywhere. And she's like, what the hell? And tries to basically figure out who this lady is, and starts getting super deep into it, and so deep into it that she doesn't know what's real. And then you as the reader don't know what is real anymore, and like who is the doppelganger. And yeah, I still have no idea. So the review I left on this was, I'm totally confused and this gave me anxiety. So that's 2 out of 5 stars. I don't know why, but this shows up as the Spanish version on Goodreads, but it is just, what is it called in English? The Accusation. Okay, yeah. So it's called The Accusation by Bundy, and that's a, what's it called? Pen name. So this book is really significant, and I've been wanting to read it since it came out because it's the first piece of translated fiction from North Korea. So there's been several North Korean memoirs that have come out. I really recommend them also if you want to learn more about North Korea. But I also recommend this book if you want to learn more about North Korea. This is a collection of short stories by Bundy, who's fairly famous over in North Korea. And he writes about the kind of like nonsensical nature of the regime in North Korea and the everyday struggles of people who live there because of the regime. And it was really interesting. But I still only rated it 3 out of 5 stars just because I didn't really like any of the characters in it. And all of the female characters in it are really stupid, save for like one. And it's mostly about men. So that's why I kind of just wasn't super into it. But still definitely worth reading. And I feel like the English translation of it is kind of awkward, especially with the dialogue. But yeah. Oh my god. Okay, a few more books. So, okay, got hair in my mouth. The next book is called When the English Fall by David Williams. And I have no idea how I even heard about this book, but I pre-ordered it on Audible and then like forgot about it for months, and then it like suddenly showed up in my Audible library, and I was like, okay, and I started listening to it, and like what the English and the title refers to is everyone who isn't Amish. So if you didn't know, the Amish people, they refer to like normal people as English, and the Amish speak a Dutch dialect. And yeah, so this is basically like an apocalyptic novel told from the point of view of an Amish man. So it's all like diary entries of this Amish man, and he's a farmer, and he's like a family guy, and he has a bunch of kids, and one of his kids is like kind of a problem for him. Like they said she has like schizophrenia, I think, or something in the book, and she kind of like predicts this apocalypse. So they never explain it in the book, like what actually happened, but they make it seem like it's some kind of natural disaster. Like magnetic solar flare or something like that, or like the magnetic poles of the earth reverse or something like that. So it ends up being that all of the electronics go down on the entire planet. And basically what happens, I thought that was so interesting because for all of the many apocalyptic novels I've read, I never stopped to think like what would happen to those people who are kind of like already on the outskirts of society, like the Amish. So yeah, it was really interesting in that way. But still not like a super amazing read. The voice in it I found really totally believable, like as an Amish person. So again, looking back, I should have probably rated it higher. Only gave it 3 out of 5 stars. But yeah, it was decent. Okay, 2 more books. So the next one is Fluency by Jennifer Foner Wells. And this is another book that took me literally years to finish. So I picked this up as an ebook. And I wrote a super long review for this. I finished this right on like the last day of the year. It says December 31st. Yeah, so, okay, no, it actually didn't take me years. It took me like 1 year to read. So I started it on January 6th of 2017, and I finished it on December 31st. So yeah, this is a science fiction novel. It actually reads more like a fantasy novel, and it reads kind of like a Stargate fan fiction, or like it's like the author was a fan of like Stargate, Star Wars, and Star Trek, and like all the science fiction shows, and never actually read real science fiction, and just like thought she could make a book based on the shows. So I'll just read you my review. I wrote, with such a beautiful cover and a science fiction series written by a woman. Yes, it's a series. It's a horrible series. I only read the first book, but I can tell you it's horrible. I had pretty high expectations for this. Unfortunately, it didn't meet a single one. The plot was boring. The secondary characters are all stereotypes and flat. Why does every single sci-fi have a crew member named Walsh? It's true. Like every movie, isn't there one in Alien? There's a character named Walsh. Sphere, maybe. I haven't seen that in a long time. I've never read the book. Alien Prometheus. I'm pretty sure there's a Walsh in that. Arrival, maybe. I don't know. It just seems like every science fiction thing there's a Walsh, but there's one in this. The lack of plot and motivation for those characters, as well as the male love interest only having characterization centered around being magnetically attracted to our mousy female lead. The novel really screwed the pooch about halfway through, when she and the beefy male love interest just had to shower together, and the narration conveniently switches to his point of view for the first time, and how he can barely control the saliva from quivering down his jowls at the mere sight of our main character's curvaceous professor's bod. He just got more and more lovesick as the novel went on, until the end, when he, a grown-ass, beefy-ass mercenary engineer guy, was pacing back and forth outside the main character's office, unsure of how to just ask her about their relationship. He actually had no other actions or talking points that didn't have to do with his attraction to her. He devolved throughout the novel. It was really disappointing. And now her main character really didn't get how she could suddenly use guns and save everyone's asses, when all she had been before being recruited for this mission was a language professor. I don't mind when a physically weak character becomes strong or badass later on, but we have to see the journey to that point, obviously, or else we don't believe it. Obviously. There's spoilers in this, but I don't care, because don't read this. And also, was she just not going to have a talk with the alien about how he basically raped her, or question mark, question mark, question mark? The whole book felt like a science fiction genre fan fiction The flat characters, a lack of interesting plot, the focus on romance and sex scenes, no thanks. Also, the ending was so cheesy, it hurts. P.S. If you've seen the film Arrival and started reading this book, the two do have the same premise. Shockingly similar premise, but the movie is not based on this book. The language interpretations of the aliens are totally different. So yeah, I watched Arrival before I finished this book, and like the beginning of this book and the movie are like the same. It's creepy how similar they are. Not creepy, but it's kind of like beyond being a coincidence, like something. Yeah, so like I said, she's a language professor, just like in Arrival, and gets recruited to go on this mission to like meet up with like the first like alien encounter ever, just like in Arrival. So yeah, that's kind of weird. So that was Fluency by Jennifer Boner Wells. So yeah, I don't know if you can see the cover because my screen's reflecting, but like, oh, it's just this cool like classic sci-fi cover with like the cool painting of the spaceship and whatnot. Such a bad, stupid book. And then finally, the last book I read of 2017 is Always Raining Here, Volume 1 by Belle and Hazel. So I picked this up at TCAF and I finally read it in like the last day of the year. It just squeaked in there, those 60 books, like the last two I got in the last day of the year. So yeah, graphic novels are generally really short, so that's a good way to get in your book count. Not gonna lie, kind of cheating. So I got 4, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Always Raining Here is a webcomic, so you can read it online for free if you want to. And it's about these two guys who, they're kind of like, their personalities are the opposite. Like one's kind of like, it's about high school. It's like a high school comic. But one of them's kind of like the bad boy, like he's kind of a rebel, like he doesn't want to go to class. And then the other one's like the opposite, like he is very like clean cut and he's a good student. And the bad boy is like openly gay or bisexual, I can't remember, but he is basically trying to like seduce him because he can't really find anyone else. And then they end up kind of like falling for each other. And it's pretty good. It's really nice seeing like, just in one volume, the art starts off like okay, but then by the end of the volume, like the drawings and the writing are getting better. So I don't know, like personally, I guess just because I am a creator as well, I enjoy seeing that. I guess some other people might not like that because it seems like inconsistent to them. But yeah, I thought it was really cute and I will be continuing it. So that was it. Oh, my throat is dying. That was it for 2017. I think I already said it, but for 2018, I've already set my goal for 60 books again, and I'm already behind. I only read 1 book so far this month. I have some others on the go, so hopefully I'll be finishing them up soon, and I'll be on track for my January goals. If you guys aren't sick of me talking about it already, if you follow my other social media accounts, I do have a Kickstarter going on right now, but I mean, I shouldn't say I do have a Kickstarter because it's not really mine, but I'm just a part of the book that the Kickstarter is for. And I put the link down in the description down below. It's for a book called Valor. A few years ago, we published the first book, and this is the sequel book. And it's a comic anthology, and it is an anthology of fairy tales or brand new fairy tales or retellings of classic ones. So my story in the first book is The Little Mermaid, a retelling. And you can read that online for free as well. You can also buy the first book if you are interested in it. It's still available. And then in the Kickstarter, what we are doing is basically just, it's serving as a pre-order for the book. So the Kickstarter is already funded. I think there's 15 more days to go. And you can also buy the first book through there. If you missed out, so you can get 1 and 2 at the same time. My story in the second book is a retelling of The Nutcracker. So yeah, I hope you guys check it out if you're interested in that. I normally don't like try to sell things. Like, I know I, like, promote my comic all the time, but this is, like, my comic is free on TapBass, so this is, like, for sale. Normally, I wouldn't try and promote stuff, like, try and get you guys to buy stuff, but, last time I did the book, I just, like, casually mentioned it in a video, and then I got a bunch of people asking me about it and, like, asking for the link, so, yeah, I thought I may as well put this one out there. Um Yeah, Becky, you read none this year. Well, that's okay. If reading's not for you, it's not for you. Um, but I personally really enjoy it, so it's my thing. Yeah, I am so tired now. The live stream doesn't show how long you've been going for these days, does it? Or wait, I can look on the YouTube page, right? Oh, it doesn't say on there either. Thank you guys for thumbing up the stream as well. Um, yeah, so all the social media links will be below, as well as the Kickstarter link. And yeah, hopefully why did I even do a stream? Like, I cannot speak at all. We will be doing more videos on this channel soon. I'm doing this thing right now where I track like my productivity in my bullet journal every day. And I'm hoping by doing that, I'm actually going to be able to get my video productivity and my comic production up to speed. So I'll be like uploading comic page every week and then a video every week as well. So probably gonna alternate between this channel and my main channel, Hikipedia, a video like every 2 weeks on each channel, basically. If that makes sense. So like a video every week, but it's like every other week for each channel. Yeah, I'm not explaining that right. Okay, so thank you for checking out this super long stream, and bye.